Film fans of YouTube, hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Josh, your Movie Apprentice, and today I am looking at Inside Out 2, directed by Kelsey Mann, and starring the voice cast of Amy Poehler, Maya Hawke, and Kensington Tallman. Inside Out 2, we once again return to the inner world of Riley as she hits the age of 13, and as puberty comes along with it, so does many other emotions, and a power struggle for Riley's very sense of self begins to develop between the new and old emotions. Before I get into my review, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, click that like button and subscribe for more video reviews that's coming all the time. But without further ado, let's jump right into this one. So Inside Out 2, where to start with Inside Out 2? Pixar, when it comes to their sequels, always tends to be a big risk, especially when they come to follow up films that were iconic originally and failed to live up to expectations. We had that with Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, as well as The Incredibles and The Incredibles 2. And Inside Out, the original one, is probably one of my top 3 Pixar movies. So I had high expectations going into this. And I will say that Inside Out 2 managed to hit the standard expected from Pixar that they had been sorely lacking in the last few years, and genuinely stood on its own as its own story separate from the original. Obviously, we have to get the elephant out of the room. How do they portray everyone's favorite brain monkey known as anxiety? I will say that anxiety is executed to absolute perfection. I will not spoil the whole dynamic that anxiety plays within the movie itself, but I will say for people growing up from the first one and how well known anxiety and depression have come to be in the modern culture, it is a very good representation of what it is like to both have anxiety, which we all have, and letting anxiety overwhelm your other emotions and take a form of control about you. Anxiety could have been just a joke character from start to finish, but they ended up being a very poignant thing in the movie and was less of an antagonistic force to get rid of, but rather something that we have to learn to live with. And I felt that is a very important message to spread out to all young people and to adults that have struggled with it. You will feel called out by this film in a number of moments. The original film obviously focused highly on the relationship between joy and sadness, and how joy had to learn to accept sadness as a genuine emotion that was good for Riley. So in this one, they put sadness to the background a little bit in order to give more focus to disgust, fear, and anger, which were all very one note in the original, as they didn't really get too much screen time. And seeing the extra layers develop of these emotions was really nice to see. Seeing joy finally not be joyful for a moment or two and just finally letting loose, almost like how a customer service professional would just eventually let that customer service mask slip to really let it out. I also like anger sometimes being the more calm, collected member of the group. But on the flip side, that also meant that the new emotions coming in, apart from anxiety, there was very little about these new emotions to really get invested in. Envy, while she was present for a lot of the time, they felt very underused, and Nao Edebiri was completely wasted in that role for me. Embarrassment, it was hard to really get a grasp on that character. They never really speak and they communicate mainly through facial reactions, but there's very little time developed towards them. And the development of their role throughout the film seems to come almost out of nowhere. And ennui is just there as the comedic relief element of it, just to embody sarcasm and boredom. And it just doesn't really feel like an emotion that would be reserved for the growing up stage of life. I feel like if that is what ennui is, we have had that our whole lives. So I didn't feel like they were a necessary emotion and were there more as a plot device and a tiny bit of comic relief. As for Riley herself, she is growing up. She is determined to get on this great hockey team. There's that struggle of seeing things from her past go away and having to embrace an unknown future. That is the main crux of where anxiety takes a foothold in this movie. And I liked Riley's development. Now, I'll say that the solution of Riley's arc and how things play out with some of the side characters feels a little bit wishy-washy, but I get it. It is a family movie. It is a Pixar movie. They want it to be, at least for the most part, really happy. So it made sense on that front, but it felt like there was some forgiveness things that were done too out of the blue without much to earn them. But seeing Riley struggle with that future, it was a very relatable aspect of the movie. Her trying to fit in with groups and worrying that their interests and likes will put off other people, so they'll pretend to like other stuff just to fit in with others. That is being a teenager 101 right there. Riley's whole arc was just a very engaging part of the movie for me, and it balanced very well. Similar with the first one, the way they balanced the Riley story with her internal emotion story, I think is very well balanced and very well executed, though it does leave some questions as to how much engagement Riley has in her own life, because there are times where it seems like every decision she ever makes is driven by her emotions. And I feel like the film tries to hint at the fact that letting emotions override us isn't healthy and that we need to make logical decisions. And I liked an aspect of it implying that she will call upon certain emotions when they are definitely needed. I liked that element of it, but at times it did feel like how much of it is Riley as an individual, as a sense of self person, versus a machine being driven by his emotions in their head. There are a lot of comparisons and conversations to be had when it comes to that aspect of the story, and I felt there will be a number of video essays out there that will delve truly into this. In terms of the animation, it is obviously really good. As always, Pixar has never spared any expense when it comes to the animation budget and the style. As much as some people might find some of the puns a little cringy, I quite enjoy the puns, how they played with the concept of sarcasm and how that will impact the world, or a brainstorm, like the literal manifestations of some of these things we mentioned in everyday life was leading some great set pieces. One of my favorite sequences had to be a sequence in a vault where secrets are kept, and there's a great sequence where several forms of animation are blended together side by side. Now, it isn't quite the levels that we come to expect from, say, Spider-Verse, where they were blending anime and different frames in the same frame that all felt like they fit together within that world. In this, you could tell that these different forms of animation don't belong together, but it is still a great visual and a very entertaining sequence within the movie itself. Before I get into my grade, if you like seeing on the channel, click the like button and subscribe for more video reviews that's coming all the time. But without further ado, let's grade this. So Inside Out 2 is a risk made by Pixar, as it has not always paid off in the past for them to do sequels to very popular products that they have done. But I feel Inside Out 2 not only builds upon the rules and the lore set in the original one, but very much stands on its own 2 feet as its own entity. The inclusion of the new emotion, especially anxiety, played fantastically by Maya Hawke, is really good, and the development of the old emotions as well, and giving them more to them besides just the generic one-note emotion that they have. I quite enjoyed that element of it. I did feel like Riley's arc, whilst it was very engaging, the way it was concluded at the end felt very fantasy, and it felt too easy to get there at that point. I think I was more emotionally invested in her arc in the original one, but that whole aspect of letting emotions blend together, suppressing emotions, how small bad memories can impact who we are and whether we let those impact or not. There are a lot of themes in this movie that there'll be many video essays diving into this. I'm gonna have to say that for me, Inside Out 2 is a great cup of tea. So Inside Out 2, have you seen it? If you have, let me know your thought down in the comments below. What was your favorite new emotion? Do let me know. Coming up on the channel, got a video essay coming up very soon, and more reviews as always. Until next time, everybody, I am Josh, I have been Movie Apprentice, and I'll see you all in the next video.